We all think we know everything because we're assholes. What a way to start a video, eh? But it's true! We walk around thinking we're ahead of everyone else and then facts come smacking you in the face and you realise you gotta start again. That's what is about to happen. Maybe. Maybe not. But yes, as much as we're used to some famous faces that have made up the tag team division over the years, it's not exactly always what they once were. Sometimes the original incarnation was actually better, but just got lost before it hit the mainstream. It's gotta be annoying, huh? You're so close, and yet you're so far. I'm Simon from What Culture, and this is 8 mind-blowing early version of famous wrestling tag teams.
But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to stay notified. Ding, ding, done.
Number 8, the Bushwhackers. The Bushwhackers we know are weird. I mean, what were they? 2 cousins called Luke and Butch who licked each other and walked funny. That's all I got. Don't know what else they did, although I do remember them fondly. Before they arrived in the WWE, however, the pair were nothing like this at all. In fact, the duo regularly wrestled in barbed wire cage matches of all things. Nearly every fight would end with them absolutely covered in blood, and to say they didn't hold back was an understatement. Even the word brutal doesn't even begin to describe it. Luke especially has been vocal about their role in pioneering hardcore wrestling, claiming he and Butch were, and I quote, hardcore before they called it hardcore. And that could be true. No matter how many old school pictures you find of them, they've always got a crimson mask. Quite the change from what we saw, and who knows what the case would have been if this was the side that had been showcased. Number 7, the New Day. Are the New Day the best group since DX in the sense of how nuts and over the top they are? Probably. They come out with colours that seem to melt off their clothes and shout like crazy people whenever they're near a microphone. Essentially, they're giant children, but that's also why they're so good. When this act first came together though, Xavier Woods, Kofi Kingston and Big E were miles away from this. There was no pancakes, cereal or unicorn horns. Instead, things were quite normal, they wore smart clothes and a lot of their verbiage was about how upset they were with WWE management. The idea was meant to be 3 wrestlers who were tired of politics and being held back. It felt a bit like a modern version of the Nation of Domination, and I can say with a lot of confidence, this wouldn't have been as successful as what we got. It was too dry, I need the silliness. Number 6, the Dudley Brothers. Devon and Bubba Ray have spent the better part of 2 decades making a case that they are the best tag team ever, and are definitely one of the best things to come out of ECW. But when they originated, it wasn't just the 2 of them. Back in the day, there used to be a whole clan. The Dudley family, or Dudley Brothers, came about because their dad, Big Daddy Dudley, was a travelling salesman who slept with a multitude of women on the road, spawning a litter of illegitimate boys along the way. And no, I'm not joking. In total, there are at least a dozen different Dudleys in the group, and there's a tongue twister at one time or another, with such colourful names as Snot Dudley, Chubby Dudley, and Big Dick Dudley. In fact, even the aforementioned Bushwhackers got in on the action, proclaiming themselves as Luke and Butch Dudley. It's a strong reminder that it doesn't really matter where you start. If you can come up with something that works eventually, you'll more than likely get over. Number 5, the Headbangers. Whether you like them or not, the Headbangers were a popular act during the Attitude Era, and their gimmick was simple. 2 heavy metal enthusiasts who wore skirts and painted their faces. Anti-authority and then some. It continued to develop over the years until it got super weird. They began to wear bras over their t-shirts and would flash their boxer shorts to the crowd. Not sure who wanted to see that, but whatever. You think this would be the most embarrassing thing that happened in the career, but it most definitely wasn't. At the very start of it, Mosh and Thrasher were in fact the Flying Nuns, a concept that was based on the sitcom of the same name. If you don't know it, that's because it aired in the 1960s. As you can guess, they did dress like nuns and even blessed their opponents. I wonder why this got changed. Number 4, the Shield. Before they became one of the best groups in recent memory, the Shield had a very weird debut at Survivor Series. Why, Slaphead? Because they wore turtlenecks. And yes, I said turtlenecks. On no planet are turtlenecks intimidating or scary. Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns have all said in interviews since they found it all a bit awkward and that there was an area they had to try and get changed as soon as possible. And they were right too. Can you imagine them having the success they did looking like that? Exactly. It could have been worse too, because there were also plans for the trio to carry plastic riot shields with the word SHIELD written on them in giant letters. They'd have looked like children, but it would have been good for merchandise, because who wouldn't want one of those? I kinda do. Ah well. Number 3, Too Cool. Too Cool is a strange example of how the most ridiculous concepts sometimes catch fire in the WWE. Somehow, someway, Scotty 2 Hotty and Grandmaster Sexay wormed their way into the hearts of fans during the Attitude Era despite a gimmick that purposely made them look like idiots. Look how they were dressed. This wasn't the first attempt with these two, however, as beforehand they were known as Too Much. Now, while that just sounds like a name change, they were actually far more insufferable as heels and told to try and annoy everyone on the planet. And you know what? They were great at it. I wanted to kill them. It never really blew up, which prompted the change, but in the long run it was the best thing that ever happened to them. We all remember those two and Rikishi these days. Don't think that would have happened with too much. Number 2, the Road Warriors. When you talk about the greatest tag teams of all time, you better mention the Road Warriors. If you don't, people will laugh at you, and you don't want that. You want to be cheered and loved, so make sure you take this advice. In short, there hasn't been a rougher, tougher, more dynamic and menacing team because Hawk and Animal were monsters. Part of what made them so intimidating, aside from kicking the crap out of their opponents, was their look, which was loosely inspired by the post-apocalyptic Mel Gibson movie of the same name. So it was basically 2 huge dudes with creepy face paint wearing football pads that had spikes coming out of them. Definitely designed to intimidate. It didn't really work at first, mind, as the look was more Village People than Mad Max. Dressing head to toe in what you might call skimpy leather, the pair were briefly known as the Roadies. They always looked like they were about to head out dancing, which isn't exactly the fear they were going for. Got there in the end, though. And that's what matters. Number 1, the Hardy Boys. Matt and Jeff returned to the WWE at WrestleMania 33 to win the Tag Team Championships and cement their status as one of the greatest tandems of all time. Important because we go back 20 years, the transformation has almost been astonishing. For all the raised eyebrows some people give Broken Matt these days, back in the 90s he potentially looked even more ridiculous, like some school kid that wanted to get a role in a play. And together, they kind of looked a bit like the Young Bucks, but nowhere near as cool. With that in mind, Jeff also looks like he's in full-on flower child mode, and both their mannerisms and costumes just made them seem like happy children who were happy to be alive, which was kind of true. They did just seem pleased to be having matches in the WWE, but still, as a far cry away from what they would become, and even a big step away from when they were managed by Michael Hayes. Once again though, it just goes to show you really do just never know, and yes, that did rhyme, because today, they're legends.
Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to subscribe below, and if you're looking for more content like this, then try a few things that are floating about around my ears. Might be fun. I can't promise it though, but it might be.